Where do you want this stuff?
Oh, let's leave it. Time for some breakfast.
All right, cool. Where's Mom?
Now she's probably still sleeping. She was working on her manuscript all night. It's called a glass. I'm gonna check to see if Mom's still awake. Up or down?
Sunday goddamn morning. How did you know I was awake?
Because you finished page 225 last night. And here's page 229.
I remembered something.
What?
It was a phone interview I did with one of the witnesses. Just an odd fact.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Well, she couldn't have seen what she said she saw.
And why?
Because she wasn't born yet. I don't know, it's weird. Doesn't make sense.
I'm sure you'll figure it out. You did in your last book.
Oh my God. My parents just do it with the door open.
Gross.
Even more gross is you watching.
Henry! You go to the range this morning?
Yep. And to the garden center. Gonna finish the landscape.
Oh, finally.
And you're gonna help.
As I always do.
Where's your sister? I'll bet she didn't eat anything.
Nope.
Well, this looks great.
Thanks. Order up.
So it looks like working at Oxford's is agreeing with you.
He loves it, but he'd never admit to it.
Oh, thank you, dear.
Thank you.
By the way, did that new contractor stop by yesterday?
He did, and he's coming back with a better estimate this time.
Well, that's progress.
What is this world coming to?
Now what?
You are not gonna believe this. There's somebody's house being searched right now. Somebody called a number by accident that is on the NSA terrorist list. Unbelievable.
It's a fucked up world.
Oh, not at the table.
Whatever. It is.
Oh, Henry, please. It's the government. I dealt with them enough on Posted. So, am I picking up your folks tonight?
Well, I'm sure they'd prefer seeing you instead of a driver, but that's completely up to you. Speaking of which, we have to make a start.
Right. To eat.
Dad, still don't get the design.
Well, it's a blend of shrubs and stonework to go around the old stone wall.
Think you missed your calling.
Well, you didn't. Are you ready for your meet?
Oh yeah. So, why do we need 2 fences?
Because it's necessary.
Necessary for what?
No, I will be. What's your flight number again? Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. No, we're starting construction on the house soon, and Henry is lost in another one of his projects. I know. Okay. Uh-huh. All right. Safe travels, and we'll see you this evening.
My favorite granddaughter. How was your flight?
Fine.
Oh, you're cute.
I hope so.
Hey!
Grandpa! Hi, how you doing?
I missed you so much. You're taller.
I know, I'm getting up there.
Where's that son of mine?
Dad's in the library.
Father, how was your flight?
No problem. An hour's delay. Those will kill you.
Would you like one?
Please, yes.
Oh, what a lovely job you did.
Thank you. It was quite the project.
And you used some of Henry's artwork.
Oh, tell that father of yours we'll see him in a minute. Okay.
You didn't say anything in the car. How is he?
Better. But I'm worried. Between the new restaurant and this gardening project.
Gardening?
For the last couple of months, he's been obsessed with this landscaping idea of his. Well, at first I thought it was a good outlet for him and Gary. I still do, all the pressures from work. But now, I don't know.
You knew when you married my son how driven he was.
I know.
And how is your new book coming along?
Oh, it was going along great until I hit an impasse. But I'll figure it out.
That's what writers do.
So, how's this new parish?
Well, now that they got rid of that lunatic minister, they've got an old one.
Those who are older should speak. For wisdom comes with age.
That's the first after many a year.
It was a moment.
So, all ready for the grand opening this week?
Oh, yeah. Yep, a few bumps along the way. Like those asshole contractors that cost me a fortune. But we're ready.
Your third restaurant. If your grandfather could see you now.
But can you see me now?
Now, son, let's enjoy these next 2 weeks.
I'm sorry. Just a lot on my mind, I guess.
Well, that's understandable. You've been working like a dog these last 2 weeks.
That would be an understatement. So, tomorrow, let me take you...
Well, look at you two. I leave you alone for a minute and the booze and smokes come out. All right, Mr. Minister, it's time for bed.
Well, I guess that's my marching orders. Thank you for a lovely evening. And thanks for the drink.
You're welcome.
As Mr. Welk would sing, good night, and pleasant dreams to you.
She should have been an actress.
Oh, she's played many roles over the years.
They're both dying to see the new restaurant. I thought I'd bring them by tomorrow at about 10.
Great. Then we can all go to an early lunch together.
Done.
So when are these extra plates and glasses arriving?
Should be here this afternoon.
Excellent. Hey, how's the pressure on those taps? Christ, what a nightmare to fix them, huh?
Thank God we got rid of those two assholes.
Assholes is being kind. Fuck. A $70,000 fix?
Are you okay?
I'm fine. There's just a lot going on.
That's for damn sure.
Excuse me. Welcome.
Look at this. How wonderful.
Thank you for coming.
You certainly have outdone yourself this time.
Well, thank you.
I can't believe this was a bank.
Actually, it was. But we did save the vault, and it's now our wine cellar.
Or the wine prison if their credit card declines.
Damn right. You see over here, we have a nice piece of granite. We actually brought this over from the farm.
I thought that was from Greece.
Well, actually, down the hall, we have a couple of nice sculptures that we did bring over. So, come on down, I'll show you.
I believe you. It's just...
Order up! Thanks, Susan.
Sure thing, doll.
Garrett, you're all set to go if you want.
Are you sure? I thought I'd clean up for tomorrow.
No. Saw your father and he said your grandparents were in town. So go have some fun.
All right, thank you, Mr. Oxford. And thank you again for this job.
My pleasure. I've known your father for 100 years. Tell him, feature in this town is mine.
Got it. See you tomorrow.
See you later.
Can we cheer with water?
Why not?
And what are we cheering to?
You, son. We are so proud of you. And you, Margaret, the hard work has certainly paid off for both of you.
Well, thank you.
We're glad you could make it. Retirement certainly hasn't slowed you down any at all.
I'll show them to the bar. I'll be over in a few.
What's wrong?
Nothing. Excuse me.
Reverend Noah?
Yes?
I don't know if you remember me.
Alan, great. How good to see you again. How are you? You remember my wife, Maria? Yes.
How nice to see you.
And my daughter-in-law, Margaret.
Oh, yes. How are you, Margaret?
Oh, great, Helen. We'll be seeing you at the opening.
Michael and I wouldn't miss it.
Michael?
Yes, my new husband. Oh, you must just meet him.
Her fourth.
She's been busy. When we left, she was working on her second. So you really must tell me more about this new book of yours.
Oh.
What can I do for the police department today?
Mr. Miller, we have some additional questions. Mr. Miller, are you even listening to me?
No, I'm not. I've been more than cooperative with the police. I have nothing further to add to my statement. And if you want anything else, you know who my lawyer is. These guys look hungry. Comp their lunch.
Mother's Day when your apartment was just 14. He tried to.
Everything okay?
Okay. It's all good.
You don't mind taking your parents home while Gary and I run some errands?
Not at all. I want to show them the farm anyways.
We're looking forward to it.
Let her go! You're holding her back, Nancy! Big circle, let her come in 3 strides straight. Watch her lead. Keep coming, good girl. Good, stay back. And out your leg. Girl, much better riding that one. Nancy, take 10, your parents are here.
So you'll see from that point over to here, I fixed a wall to follow the tree line across the field. Dad? Dad, what's wrong?
Just a little tired all of a sudden. I think I'll go back to the house and rest up before dinner. Our son is wrong. That fence is not for horses.
Nancy, your father!
Sir, are you still with us? No other signs of trauma apparent.
Are you sure you don't want to see someone?
Gary, your father will be okay. He'll understand.
I just can't believe how stupid I was that I left my cell phone at home. Hello, Doctor.
Mrs. Miller?
Is everything all right?
Your husband's still unconscious. Could we speak for a moment?
Something's wrong.
Well, we're not sure really. We knew the history of CVA and we've ruled that out. We're still running a battery of tests and I'm waiting to hear from Dr. Pullman.
Doctor who?
She's the neurologist your husband's been seeing for the last 6 months.
What?
You didn't know?
No, I didn't. Why is he seeing a neurologist? What's wrong?
Well, that's why I need to speak with her. Now, I know I've already asked you 1,000 questions, but you're sure you don't remember anything odd?
Nothing out of the ordinary. He's been under a lot of pressure with the new restaurant, but it's... Doctor, it's Mr. Miller.
Well, that's a miracle if I ever saw one. Nurse, I want to take another look at that EEG.
Yes, Doctor.
Your son's conscious. The doctor's with him. You should be able to see him in a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, you may look and feel fine, but you're not going anywhere yet.
You gave us all a hell of a scare.
You and me both.
So who's this Dr. Pullman?
She told you?
Just that you were seeing a neurologist? What's going on?
Nothing. Really?
Oh, Henry, come on.
Okay. Painful, excruciating headaches.
Well, why didn't you say something?
Because they didn't find anything wrong. They never find anything wrong. One goddamn test after another. Do you know how frustrating this is?
Good morning, Doctor. Welcome back.
Thank you, Eleanor. Never long enough.
Never is.
So they released Henry last night?
Yes, a few hours ago.
Oh, good.
His file, Doctor.
Thank you. The moment they arrive, just show them in.
Yes, Doctor.
The question I have is, do I get a free dinner for coming home early?
How about 2?
How you feeling?
Oh, fine. Thank you for coming back so soon.
You're lucky I was just at my place in Maine. And this must be the now informed Margaret. I enjoyed your last book, Posted. Social Secret of the Government.
Sorry, Doctor. Not informed. Surprised.
Yes, unfortunately, the spouses are often the last one to know. Please. Now, with your permission, I'm afraid we're gonna need more than that.
Yes, Dr. Pullman, you have my permission to tell my wife everything. Was that good enough?
It is now.
Now, Margaret. For the last several months, Henry has been suffering from unexplained, excruciating headaches. Now, we are aware of the family history of CVA and pheochromocytoma, and that he's had some form of these headaches since childhood. We have run nearly every test and procedure that we know of. We have tried diet, exercise, slowing down your workload, but nothing seems to be working. And oddly enough, nothing seems to be wrong. But now, Henry, you have actually collapsed and blacked out.
Doctor, you said nearly every test?
That's right. There is one last test. It's a bit more intrusive.
Intrusive? That's a hell of an understatement.
Henry, it's all we have left. The headaches were one thing, but if you were to have one more of these episodes and you were driving, you could be dead. Your family, or some poor sap crossing the street.
I won't do it.
There is no other choice. There must be something in your past that's causing this pain, physically and emotionally. Once we know it, if the procedure reveals it, we can deal with it.
I don't understand. How painful is this test?
You don't have the same past that I do. Your past wouldn't be painful to look at.
I'm sorry.
I think it's time for show and tell.
fMRI.
Someone's done her homework.
Hard to miss. They were all over the news a couple of years ago. A machine that can actually read the human mind.
Pretty amazing, isn't it? A complete video record of long-term memory as seen through the human eye.
My God. How does it work?
Pretty much like the traditional functional MRI, except this procedure takes several hours to render. Memory recall is prompted by photographs from birth to the present.
Well, what if you can't remember?
The mind remembers everything, Mrs. Miller, on a conscious and subconscious level. It's what it chooses to reveal. The photographs here are basically a guide for the mind to establish a timeline of event. Memory triggers, if you will. It is not perfect, but it is not dangerous. All you have to do is lay there.
And relive a life you don't want to remember.
Henry, I assure you, you have nothing to worry about. You haven't killed anyone, have you?
Not in this lifetime.
Then don't worry.
Why did you ask him that?
Well, it's an elective voluntary procedure, and HIPAA doesn't protect capital crime.
When do you want to do this?
Today. You already gave us your live images.
How long will it take to get the results?
Just a few days. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm only concerned with the last 10 years. Now, the program will analyze everything and suggest moments in time for us to look at. But can have you home by this evening.
I'm surprised this isn't used more often.
Well, insurance won't cover it. Think about it. If you were gonna watch all of your memories, you would need another lifetime to watch a lifetime. Plus, the AMA doesn't want to take on Hollywood.
We won't be home until after 10, so don't hold dinner.
Now, you sure you don't want us there?
No, there wouldn't be anything for you to do.
Okay. Tell that son of ours we love him. See you tonight. Bye.
Bye.
Everything okay?
Oh, fine. He's having some new MRI test. Something to do with memory. I can't keep up. You should be happy I text.
So, Henry, do you have any final question on the procedure?
No.
Mr. Miller, you understand that this is an elective procedure. It's not covered by any medical insurance. And it has only limited protections under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and excludes only protections for the disclosure of capital offenses.
I understand. Let's just get this over with.
Identify for retinal scan.
Miller, Henry, DOB, June 5, 1981. Well, that certainly gives a new meaning to the term, sign your life away.
Car Control, this is U.S. Operations. Site 1, linking to Central. Transmitting authorization code.
FVMR link up at 100%. Commence memory transmission of patient Miller Henry, DOB, June 5, 1981.
Acknowledge Ryan Car Control. Encryption is nominal. Standing by to receive signal.
Congratulations, Henry. You're going to be so happy here.
Oh, thank you, Kathleen. This is a dream come true.
Daddy, well, you know he just adores you.
I'm going to show you how to cook just like you did fire.
You know you cost these gentlemen over here?
How are you, buddy?
Yeah, look what I'm in.
You can do much better than that.
Henry's or Miller's, what do you think? Oh, I can see it now. I can see all the people. It's just the beginning.
It is. You want to see more?
God, what is this?
Your mother and I only want to help you.
I don't need any more of your help. Everybody's appreciative, so am I.
Henry, won't you please?
Go. Listen, we are beyond sorry at this point. There's just so much going on.
I just wish you would talk if you lost the time.
I will.
Dad, look what I made.
Really? How dare you present this to me? You can do much better. Go, take this, and go.
Dad? Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. Where's everybody?
Just a few errands. Gary picked up another shift.
Great.
So, how are you feeling?
Honestly, like $1 million. Like this enormous weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Oh my gosh.
I understand it was quite a procedure. You do know you've been asleep for 2 days.
A lot to relive. Dad, I know I've been very difficult, especially these last couple years, and I'm sorry. I just...
It's all right. I haven't been...
Well, look who's risen from the dead.
Well, thank you. Wow, this looks like the party before the party.
Ribs!
Oh, great. I don't think I've ate since Monday. Hey, I heard you picked up another shift.
Yep.
Excellent.
And don't you even think of going to the ground.
There he is. I just want to tell you how proud your father and I are of you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your night. You've done it again.
Helen, thank you so much for coming. You haven't aged a day.
Aren't you the flatterer? But then again, that's your job. Oh, Henry, this is Michael Sunderland.
Congratulations. Great job. Good job.
Thank you. So you to your tables. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks.
Enjoy. Thank you. Thanks for Bob. Henry. How are you, Bob?
Great, yourself?
Not bad, thank you. Alone tonight?
Not with me.
Then tell you what. Let me get you proper escort to the bar. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you very much.
Doctor, what's going on? The police suddenly showed up and demanded I call you.
I'm not sure, but I may need you as a witness. Starting now.
Doctor, would you please come with me?
You said it was a Walker?
Well, this looks important.
Eve, this is District Attorney Constance Smith, Detectives McPherson and Campbell.
Well, my husband is in the car.
Well, this section just finished rendering 3 hours ago.
Well, I don't believe it.
Run it again.
What do you plan on doing with this?
It's a capital crime, Doctor. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I know Henry Miller. He isn't capable of this.
Well, the evidence begs to differ. Would you run it again, please? The first segment at half speed and the second at full. Can you transfer it up here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. A field, 2 people running. A gun, a hand, 2 shots, 2 falls.
This could be anything or nothing.
It's a memory, Doctor. You, of all people, should agree. Your silence is not going to help you or your patient, Doctor. Your own testimony to the FDA about this procedure 3 years ago should prove invaluable. Play the next segment. You know, I think it's safe to say that at some point or another we've all threatened to kill somebody. Somebody pisses us off and we go off half-cocked. But that doesn't mean that we cock and pull the trigger.
What do you want from me?
Save him from embarrassment. Call Henry Miller. Have him come down here.
Oh, so you can arrest him here in the hospital? Well, that certainly beats arresting your predecessor for embezzlement, doesn't it?
Eve, he signed a release.
I bet that makes you feel good. And just where do you think I was going tonight?
Same place I was.
We have lost so many rights over the last 20 years. This procedure was... Oh, fuck off, counselor. First, if any of you want to speak to me from here on, you will go to my attorney. And that goes for hospital administration, too. I am not your employee.
Eve, we have a sign...
Oh, fuck you two, all right? Your first phone call should have been to his attorney. If you want Henry Miller tonight, you best make reservation.
The people already have one.
Great. Now, if you'll excuse me while I go call my lawyer.
Hello?
It's Pullman. We have a moment and it's going legal. Look, I know he's busy. Did you tell him it's urgent?
I'm sorry. He says he'll try to call you back. He wants to know if you're still coming?
Yes. Tell him I'm on my way.
Did she say what she wanted?
Just that it was important. Welcome to Henry's.
We need to park in front.
Afternoon of golf would be fantastic.
Oh, you still have the privileges.
I do.
That
Let's
tea
make a
time?
point of it. No,
Great. Excuse me.
Constance, your reservation was for 2.
Henry, we need to talk. Privately.
So you're not giving away...
Constance Smith, you look stunning tonight.
John Darrow. Well, just as well. I need to talk to your client right now and in private.
How about a drink first?
All right, Constance, what's up?
Henry Miller, you are under arrest for the murders of Christopher
This is
Thomas and
insane!
Richard
Shut up!
Who the fuck do you think you are?
Shut up! Shut up!
How dare you come in here? You will my restaurant! What's wrong with you?
Let's go. Henry is giving you an order to talk to no one. We'll see your eye on one of the parts meeting in the station shortly.
Something.
Calm. We're gonna take care of this, Henry.
Do something.
Ryankovsky. Let's go. I know you're ambitious and everyone loves seeing great men fall, but you think you're gonna get a conviction on just this, what, memory test?
John, we've had more than that for months, and you know it. Now, we never would have gotten those search warrants.
What the hell is going on? I heard Henry was arrested? For what?
For the murders of Christopher Thomas and Richard Fanning.
Margaret.
You're insane.
Please.
He never...
I know you're upset, but you need to be quiet. Just let me handle this. You're executing the search warrants tonight.
As we speak, all 3 restaurants are being searched and we're interviewing potential witnesses. Now, the farm is considered a crime scene, and you cannot go there until we have finished our investigation. My suggestion would be that you get Margaret out to the house as soon as possible.
Your suggestion? What the hell is this? You know we have
Margaret,
animals.
please.
We have to...
Constance, I don't know what's motivating this all so quickly, but your search
We
better
have
be...
2 dead men, John. That's my motivation. Okay. Now, Mrs. Miller, I know that you were upset, but we have a job to do, as inconvenient as that may be. Now, I think the search is going to be done by mid-afternoon, but if not, we will look after the animals. If you need to get a few things, John or one of his partners will walk you through the house.
What happened to Daddy? It's a misunderstanding. But everything is going to be okay. We'll see.
Sir, look at the camera. Look to the side. Good.
Mom, what's going on?
It's just a misunderstanding. I need you kids to stay in the car. We're gonna stay in a hotel tonight.
Well, why do we have to stay at a hotel?
Because we just do, okay? Now, just wait here.
Margaret, sit down for a moment. Take a break. Relax. Breathe. First, you'll all be staying at my house tonight. We have plenty of room, and Rhonda's expecting you. I'll stay here and make sure they only take what the warrant allows. Henry will be okay, Margaret. He's safe.
Thank you. Thank you, John. It's a living nightmare.
Henry will be home by tomorrow. We'll get to the bottom of this, see this thing through.
Court is now in session. Please be seated and come to order.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Henry Miller, docket number 53859. The charges are 2 counts of murder in the 2nd degree.
How does the defendant plead?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
As expected. The people?
Your Honor, the defendant is charged with the second-degree murders of Christopher Thomas and Richard Fanning. These are two contractors that worked for Mr. Miller. The evidence will show a history of the defendant physically assaulting these individuals, as well as a video memory record of the murders themselves. Owing to the financial position, the international holdings, and the motivation to flee the jurisdiction of this defendant, we ask that bail be denied and that he be remanded and held until trial.
Remanded? Your Honor, my client is not a flight risk and he has no prior record. He has substantial holdings within the community, as seen through his 3 successful restaurants that rely on his day-to-day management. He's married, he has 2 children in the local school system. These international holdings that the district attorney mentioned is nothing more than a 1-room apartment outside of Dresden, Germany, that's rented to another party. Owing to his position in the community, my client is motivated to prove his innocence in this matter.
If Your Honor does grant bail, as these are capital crimes, we ask for a high bail, and that the defendant surrender his passport to probation.
I have reviewed the grand jury testimony and the evidence. From my conversation with the chief of police of less than an hour ago, I understand you have yet to find 1 body, let alone 2. Counselor, you understand we are generally here this morning because of a medical procedure Mr. Miller had. Some kind of a MRI-like machine that allegedly shows an admission of his memory shooting Mr. Thomas and Mr. Fanning. I do not make it my habit to preach from the bench, especially during a bail hearing. Counselor, you are certainly an uncharted...
Your Honor, if it would please the court, I would be happy to...
It would please me to not be interrupted. Bail is set at $250,000, cash, bond, or surety. The defendant will surrender his passport to probation. Your respective motions for a pretrial conference are approved.
All rise.
Take a shell.
Okay. It looks like a shell, I'm not sure, but as soon as we get something, we'll let you know. Good shells.
Thank you again for looking out for everybody last night. I didn't do it. I didn't kill those
Henry,
guys. Look, you gotta believe me.
I don't give a damn whether you did or you didn't. Those guys were scum. And what really bothers me is this medical procedure you just signed off on.
It was a medical procedure, for Christ's sake. How the hell was I supposed to know that it would manufacture this, I don't know, a shooting or whatever?
Why didn't you talk it over with me first? Henry, you signed a release. You gave them this evidence.
I swear to God, I didn't know. Do you think that I would have done that and signed off on it if I had? Oh my God, are you kidding me? This is, I can't believe this. I took one look at that image. I don't remember anything, nothing.
All right. Look, I have to get to Constance's office and see what she has. I promise you, I will get to the bottom of this.
Thank you, John. Honestly, without you, I don't know what I'd do.
No, that's what I'm here for. Oh, one more thing. I don't need to tell you about the media attention this is going to get, so no talking to reporters, no social media. The last thing we need is one of your online rants to go viral with more bad press on top of press they don't even understand.
Okay. I promise.
Good.
I've been thinking. I know we plan to stay another week, but maybe it's best that we leave tonight.
No, I think it's good that you're both here. If anything, for the kids.
So, Henry, why didn't you tell Margaret anything about these headaches?
What would have been the point? We know what Father's solution was.
Strange, though. Despite all this, they still haven't found anything wrong.
Arriving home after posting $250,000 in bail for the alleged double murder of contractors Richard Fanning and Christopher Thomas, local businessman and restaurateur Henry Miller will soon stand trial on what is being called the man versus his mind. What defense do you post when your own memory admits your guilt? At the center of this trial are the new fMRI scans and its manufacturer, Rhine-Carr Scientific.
That's it for the weekend?
So far.
David Barnes? Yes.
How's it going?
How's it going? The goddamn police dug up the entire property. What the hell do they think they're going to find?
David called. John.
What now?
More subpoenas.
Whatever.
David's worried. They served him in the restaurant. Maybe if you went back to work, it would help. It's been over 2 weeks.
My customers shouldn't see me. It's best if I just stay away.
And do what all day? Keep obsessing over this gardening project? You won't talk to any of us. You barely eat. The kids are starting to...
Enough! Enough! You have any idea what I'm going through? Any? This isn't one of your novels. This is real world, okay? Real world. Christ, I'm standing trial for a crime I can't remember. But my mind does. What the hell am I supposed to do?
Your Honor, we filed this motion objecting to Margaret Miller testifying on the grounds of spousal privilege.
Your Honor, Section 504B1 of the Evidence Code clearly states that spousal privilege can only be invoked by a married couple for conversations that are private and confidential. Our office is only interested in conversations that took place between the defendant and Mrs. Miller when a third party was present, in this case, the horse trainer.
Agreed. The defendant's motion to preclude the testimony of Margaret Miller is denied. Next.
Well, Your Honor, as you mentioned yourself during my client's bail hearing, we're generally here because of video footage produced by a controversial medical procedure that allegedly scans long-term memory.
Don't put words in my mouth, Counselor. I never said the word controversial. And I want to remind you that the procedure has been approved by the FDA after extensive testimony and hearings.
And I would also like to remind this honorable court of the numerous recalls the FDA has made after approving new devices to market.
Proceed.
Well, the evidence of this process that is submitted by the District Attorney's Office is unscientific and falls short of admissibility under the Doe-Bear standard. It's highly prejudicial at best and obtained illegally at worst. Now, first, if we're even to believe that this so-called medical procedure is capable of scanning, recording, and broadcasting long-term memory, my client never would have undergone this procedure. Second, according to the FDA, 3% of all procedures during clinical trials resulted in a, quote, unreadable and unreliable memory process, unquote. Finally, in addition to their highly inflammatory nature, the act these files allege is tantamount to an admission of guilt by my client without prior reading of his rights under Miranda. For these reasons, I ask that all video files associated with this so-called medical procedure be suppressed. And if this honorable court should suppress this evidence, I ask Her Honor to dismiss this case with prejudice.
The people?
Thank you, Your Honor. We are indeed in new uncharted waters with this evidence, but facts are facts. And if we follow the facts in this case, the evidence proves that the defendant is guilty of murder and that this medical procedure has withstood scientific scrutiny. Now, first, the defendant signed a release that, quote, any act of a capital nature executed from the point of view of the patient shall be delivered upon rendering to the district attorney, unquote. Second, the prejudicial claim of the defendant is unfounded. All evidence presented against someone is prejudicial. The test of it is it sufficiently reliable and trustworthy? Now, this video is no different from any third-party video of a crime. This is not images of two dead bodies that might sway a jury, but images of two people being assaulted and shot. In addition to the FDA certification documentation, we will be presenting to this honored court a variety of samples, along with expert testimony on the 3% that my colleague mentioned. Now, as for Miranda, this was a medical procedure. There was never a police custodial interrogation. There were no police involved at all. So I return to my first statement. The defendant signed a release. More importantly, he knew he was already under investigation for the disappearance of the two victims. His continuation with this procedure was either an act of arrogance or stupidity.
Your Honor, my client is not.
As Chief Justice Roberts said long ago during his confirmation hearings, a judge should be careful in making certain they have a real case in front of them. Evidence has been submitted that is new to both the legal and scientific communities. But new doesn't mean it is untrustworthy. It is just new. This is a case that no matter the outcome, it will demonstrate that sometimes our thoughts are not our own. Despite the issues, legal and ethical, surrounding patient privacy, there is still patient choice. And in this case, the patient chose to have the procedure. In this case, the patient signed a document of release binding both parties. Therefore, the images of the shooting are admissible, but the physical assault is not. The Commonwealth versus Henry Miller is bound over for trial.
You want to see me, Mr. Oxford?
Yeah, Gary, listen. Till this matter with your father's over, I can't have you work here anymore.
I don't understand. I thought I was doing a good job,
It's got
Ron.
nothing to do with your work. It has to do with this.
Well, what is it?
It's a subpoena. I have to testify at the trial. Look, I hated those bastards too, but your father...
You did what? I didn't have any other choice, Henry. We only have one goal here. Just one.
Yeah, my
I
innocence.
don't care about that. I care about two words. Reasonable doubt. That's all. Oxford had more motive than you.
I know, but what the hell are we gonna do about this? This memory.
And are you going to try to introduce that at the trial?
Don't I wish. So, what have you got?
Ranker Scientific held international trials.
You son of a bitch, close that door. Just tell me you don't have them in your hand.
No.
Good. They are not going to be seen in this office. Have you got it?
Yeah.
So what do you have?
I don't know if this is going to help or hurt our case.
Our case. In an election year, this is my case.
You have to love discovery. Looks like Pullman is more than a doctor. It's man against the machine now.
You okay?
I was fired today.
Why?
Because Dad's making Mr. Oxford testify.
Why is he doing that?
I don't know. And I don't care. This whole fucking world's falling apart.
I know. Mom said my trainer won't come back either.
You know, I just want to go away. But of course, we can't because we have to look like a family. You know, what kind of family is this? Goddamn father kills someone!
I don't know how. Mom and I were home in the morning and we were all home at night.
I heard the kids talking.
Kids talk.
Most don't think their father killed someone.
They don't think that.
Gary does. I don't blame him. It's hard to see once you see that video. How do you win against your own mind?
Are the people ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
The defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Members of the jury, I'm about to make some general remarks as an oral addendum to my written instructions that you received earlier. This is a trial of a criminal case. The defendant, Henry Miller, is charged in a complaint which reads as follows. That on Saturday, April 18th of 2026, he shot and killed Christopher Thomas and Richard Fanning in a non-premeditated act on his property at Wilson Road in Stiles, Massachusetts. The defendant is charged with 2 counts of the crime of murder in the 2nd degree. Opening statements and closing arguments are not evidence. The prosecution will introduce evidence in support of the charges. The defense may present evidence, but they are not required to do so. You are the sole and exclusive judges of the facts. You alone determine what evidence to believe. You must decide this case solely on the evidence presented in this courtroom. You must completely disregard all electronic, social, newspaper, television, or radio reports about this case which you might encounter. If you follow that oath and try the issues without fear or prejudice or bias or sympathy, you will arrive at a true and just verdict.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, members of the jury. This is a very simple case. A case in which the evidence will prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant, Henry Miller, shot and killed Christopher Thomas and Richard Fanning
at his farm on April 18th of this year for the oldest motive in the world: revenge of an unpaid debt. The evidence will show that the defendant hired the contracting services of Mr. Thomas and Mr. Fanning, was unhappy with those services, and filed a civil suit against both of them, claiming $250,000 in lost revenues. And the evidence will prove more than one physical altercation between the defendant and Mr. Fanning. Now, the journey of this dispute ended when the defendant shot and killed Mr. Thomas and Mr. Fanning on April 18th. The evidence: the defendant's own mind, his own memory. The defendant underwent a procedure on June 5th of this year at Worcester Hospital under the care of doctors and specialists that revealed the memory, the action of him raising his arm and shooting Mr. Thomas and Mr. Fanning as they were running for their lives away from him. Like DNA or fingerprints or other forensic evidence, this procedure, for which the defendant volunteered and signed a release for the, quote, memory of any capital crime committed, unquote. This procedure is thankfully another tool of the people in prosecuting criminal actions. After I present the evidence, I will return before you to ask you to return a verdict of guilty in the second degree for the murders of Christopher Thomas and Richard Fanning. You will see from the preponderance of the evidence that no other verdict is possible. Thank you.
Wow. It used to be you would go to your doctor and you'd leave with a prescription. Now you leave with an indictment. Take my word for it. If you good people are sitting here today, this isn't a simple case. In fact, the case that the government is planning to present is circumstantial at best and fantasy at its worst. My friend Henry Miller is on trial for his life because of a machine. A machine that the FDA, our government, has stated has a 3% error rate. But while that machine has a 3% error rate, do you know what's 100% today? It's a 100% fact that the district attorney has not turned up one dead body, never mind two. That Christopher Thomas and Richard Fanning could be walking the beaches of the Caribbean after bilking tens of thousands from several businesses in the community. It was in Henry Miller's best interest to see that justice was served and that Mr. Fanning and Mr. Thomas were brought to trial because, with their certified death by the Commonwealth, their limited assets have been liquidated insolvent, with no hope for financial recovery. To say that this trial is a travesty of justice to my friend and to the people would be an understatement. Henry Miller isn't perfect. He can be difficult. But we don't put people on trial because they are difficult. We put people on trial because they have committed a crime, and Henry Miller has not committed any crime. In a century where privacy is transparent, we're at least able to say that our thoughts are our own. To ensure that we don't lose a law-abiding citizen to a flawed machine and set a precedent that our thoughts are for the legal taking, I implore you to return a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Call your first witness. The Commonwealth calls George Katz.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. Katz, will you please tell this court your occupation?
I'm a forensic accountant and a federal social examiner with the firm Katz & Katz.
Let the record show that Mr. Katz is here today as an expert witness. Now, Mr. Katz, you have examined the personal and corporate financial records of the defendant, as well as the civil suit that he filed against Mr. Fanning and Mr. Thomas. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what were your findings?
Objection. It calls for a conclusion without a foundation.
Sustained.
Regarding revenues for the defendant's restaurants for the past 3 fiscal years, was the business operating with a positive cash flow?
Yes, until the current fiscal year when Miller Restaurants started to finance their third restaurant. The build-out in the permitting process was more than estimated, and then there were delays because of contractor issues.
And by contractor issues, are you referring to the work that was done by Mr. Thomas and Mr. Fanning?
Yes.
And did these contractor issues delay the opening of the restaurant?
Substantially. The company had to completely redo the wiring and plumbing as they were not up to code. The delay caused a cash flow impairment of over $250,000 in projected revenue, plus there was the $70,000 in needed repairs.
So is it your testimony that the defendant was out more than $350,000?
Yes.
And what did the defendant do about it from a legal point of view?
He filed a civil suit, but preliminary discovery showed that Mr. Thomas and Mr. Fanning's company did not have the assets to repay.
And was the defendant aware of this development?
Yes, it was revealed in court papers.
Now, did Mr. Thomas and Mr. Fanning have any liability insurance?
At one point, but the policy was in cancellation due to non-payment, so even a judgment would not have secured recovery in a suit.
Now, from your analysis of the records, did this $350,000 cause the defendant any financial problems?
Objection. Vague and ambiguous.
Overruled.
The defendant in March of this year pledged the deeds of his 2 other restaurants as additional collateral on the loans for the new restaurant.
So, the defendant's entire business rested on the successful opening of the restaurant.
It was a business imperative to get the new restaurant open and operating as soon as possible.
No further questions. Your witness.
Mr. Katz, how many times has the district attorney's office engaged your services as a professional witness?
This is my 15th engagement.
Have you ever operated a restaurant, Mr. Katz?
No, I'm a forensic...
Yes or no, please?
No.
And aside from your firm, have you ever operated a business?
No.
So then you've never operated a restaurant?
I'm a forensic...
That wasn't my question. Have you ever operated a restaurant?
No.
Did you discover any loan defaults, reduction in capital expenditures, reduced marketing and advertising, or layoffs?
No.
Did you find in your discovery process that my client financed his second restaurant after mortgaging his farm several years ago?
Yes.
So, is it your expert testimony today that small business owners must also pledge personal assets when expanding their businesses?
In some cases, yes.
So it's not unusual?
No, not at all.
Now, as a CPA, isn't it true that Mr. Miller could have claimed his losses in business construction costs to reduce his tax liability?
Yes, that's true.
And that your forensic investigation revealed that my client, Mr. Henry Miller, personally and as CEO of Miller Restaurants, has not defaulted on any loan obligation since he started his first restaurant?
That's correct.
Now, regarding the canceled liability insurance for Mr. Thomas and Mr. Fanning's business, isn't it true that it was canceled on May 25th of this year due to a bounced check and not deliberate non-payment?
The payment was returned for insufficient funds and the policy was canceled 30 days later.
Let the record show that this is the check in question that was returned for insufficient funds. Now, Mr. Katz, I understand that you had this check examined by a handwriting expert. Is that Mr. Fanning's signature?
Yes.
How then, if Mr. Fanning was killed on April 18th, was this check placed in the mail on the 20th? No further questions.
Redirect, Your Honor. Hypothetically, Mr. Katz, hypothetically. The 18th of April was a Saturday on which the U.S. Postal Service does not process or deliver mail. Is it possible that this check was dropped in a mailbox on Friday night or Saturday morning and not postmarked until the next business day of the post office on April 20th?
Certainly.
And just one further question. As a federal social examiner, you pulled a complete social and credit record on both Mr. Thomas and Mr. Fanning. On what date did all social and credit activity stop?
April 18th.
No further questions.
The court will recess for lunch and resume again at 1:30.
All rise.
Anything new come in on that top secret file?
No, not yet. Our friends in Berlin said maybe a few more days.
I think we need different friends.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man.
When did the police department get involved with the defendant?
On March 2nd, we received an anonymous tip of an assault perpetrated by the defendant, Mr. Miller.
And what action did you take?
We visited Mr. Fanning and Mr. Thomas at their residences. We found that Mr. Fanning had a black eye. He said that he'd gotten into an argument with the defendant at the Miller farm.
Did he say what the argument was about?
No, ma'am, he didn't.
Did you talk to Mr. Miller?
We were told that we would be unable to speak with him unless we talked with his attorney.
Who was there when you arrived?
The defendant, Mr. Miller, Brian Kofsky, one of his managers, and Bob Oxford of Oxford Pizza.
And what did Mr. Miller say to you?
You're too late, the sons of bitches just left. After logging the incident, we went to go question Mr. Fanning and Mr. Thomas.
And did you so?
They never returned to their homes.
Objection. How can they possibly know that? The police department only checked the residences twice after the incident.
Sustained.
Mr. Darrow's quite right. We went to their homes on 2 occasions that day, and at neither time did we find them at home. We checked with the witnesses that were present, and they said that they'd not seen them.
Did anyone see them again after this alleged incident?
We received video from the Worcester Hospital showing Mr. Fanning entering the emergency room for treatment. He was bleeding quite heavily from his face.
Play Worcester Hospital video, please. And then what happened?
He was treated and stitched for severe laceration to his cheek.
Did the medical staff ask what had happened?
The file says that he said that he got into a fight with someone but failed to identify the party. Here again, as no charges were filed, we were unable to act.
And the file remained dormant until June 8th?
That's correct, at which time we received evidence of a homicide, 2 homicides committed by Mr. Miller.
Play Miller Farm video.
Objection. Your Honor, the shooter has not been identified as Mr. Miller, nor has the location been identified as Mr. Miller's farm.
Your Honor, we went over this in the pretrial hearing. This video, this image, was taken directly from the memory scan performed on Mr. Miller at Worcester Hospital. These are the memories of Henry Miller. He authorized their release.
Overruled.
You have to say something.
Nobody believed us then. Why would they now? We just have to have faith.
Faith won't save our son.
I won't go through that hell again. Once was enough.
Now, putting aside the scientific process by which this evidence was obtained, what other evidence led you to the defendant?
Mr. Miller's an expert marksman and holds a Class A license. I know this because we both practice at the same range. Computer and forensic analysis indicates that the gun in the video is a Walther PP. Mr. Miller owns such a pistol. In addition, the shooter's extended arm shows that he's wearing a black jacket. Computer analysis shows that the runners in the video are not only wearing the same colored clothing as Mr. Fanning and Mr. Thomas, but they also match in height. You can refer back to the video from the hospital.
Did you perform any other analysis?
Yes. If you look in the video, you can look at the optical range and overlay that to the field. There's a 90% match to terrain and geography.
And what could cause the 10% variation?
Well, we all remember the Force 1 tornado that touched down in early May. It did substantial damage to the adjacent fields and forest. In fact, the entire roof of the Miller's barn had to be replaced.
And you also obtained GPS locations for the three subjects from their respective cellular carriers.
Yes, the GPS information, as shown in the video, shows that Mr. Miller, Mr. Thomas, and Mr. Fanning were all on the property on April 18th at the same time.
Thank you. No further questions. Go, witness.
So despite 2 alleged assaults by Mr. Miller on Mr. Fanning, there were no charges filed.
That's correct.
Did you recover any forensic evidence from the Miller farm?
No.
Did you analyze Mr. Miller's Walther PP?
Yes, but the results were irrelevant.
And why was that?
Well, we haven't recovered a body yet.
So you didn't recover the corpses of Mr. Fanning or Mr. Thomas?
No, sir.
And you couldn't determine if Mr. Miller's Walther PP was used in this alleged shooting, could you?
No, sir.
So because it could have been anybody's Walther, you had Mr. Miller's Walther returned to him?
Under petition from your office, sir.
Let's go back to the GPS locator signals on the day in question. Are you aware that they only have an exact location of within 100 feet of each other because the cell phone tower on the property hasn't been repaired since the tornado?
I've recently learned that, yes.
Looks like on some of these possibilities, you'd have to be able to shoot through a barn. Damn, that would be a good shot.
Move along, Mr. Darrow.
Did you know that Mr. Fanning and Mr. Thomas visited the Miller farm on more than one occasion when no one at the Miller farm was home?
Yes, sir.
And now you know why I petitioned your office to have Mr. Miller's Walther returned to him.
Objection.
Withdrawn. Did you know that the GPS location signals can place Mr. Miller, Mr. Thomas, and Mr. Fanning on the Miller farm for only 1 hour at the same time on April 18th between 1:15 and 2:23 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
And that starting at 2:23 p.m., all of their GPS signals disappeared into the 1,000-foot blind spot just outside of the Miller driveway. And that Mr. Miller's GPS signal returned to the Miller farm at 8:32 p.m. that evening.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever find Mr. Fanning's or Mr. Thomas's automobiles?
Only Mr. Thomas's. It was located at the Worcester Hospital. The security cameras had it arriving at 10:02 a.m.
But you never found Mr. Fanning's car, never mind Mr. Thomas or Mr. Fanning?
No, we conducted an extensive local and national search, and neither Mr. Fanning, Mr. Thomas, nor Mr. Fanning's automobile have ever been located.
And then Mr. Fanning's mother submitted this alleged shooting video, credit, and social files to the probate court to issue a death certificate and received the $200,000 life insurance policy on Mr. Fanning's life.
Objection. The life insurance policy is not relevant.
Your Honor, the district attorney has established money as an alleged motive for this alleged shooting. I'm just following the money.
Overruled.
Yes, Deborah Fanning received $200,000 in life insurance proceeds.
So then, by your own testimony and by the evidence submitted, we have no bodies, no weapon, no forensic evidence recovered from the Miller farm, and only a 1-hour time frame to overpower and kill 2 grown men, destroy the GPS locators in their phones, remove and discard 2 bodies, hide an automobile, and be home in time for dinner. Oh, and all the while, Mr. Fanning's mother receives an eventual financial windfall. No further questions.
This court is in recess until tomorrow morning.
All rise.
When I saw Joseph in the courtroom, brought back so many memories.
You've seen a lot, Helen.
Perhaps too much. Events that I thought were long forgotten. Henry doesn't talk much about his childhood, does he?
No. It's one of those unwritten rules not to talk about it. I met him in college, so I only know what he tells me.
He was one of my favorite students. Such a smart little boy. Always building things. Very exacting. But there were times when I almost thought he was somebody else.
He does fog out sometimes. It's been hard seeing such a proud man fall apart.
Henry always loved art. His restaurants are just beautiful. At the time, he made 2 versions of this. I showed the other one to Joseph and Maria.
Oh my God.
When they confronted Henry, he didn't remember drawing it. Just like he doesn't remember this shooting. Joseph won't talk about it, but Maria might.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Would you please state your name and occupation for the record?
Eve Pullman. I'm a doctor of neurology and I run a private practice at Worcester Hospital.
And how long have you had your practice in Worcester?
Just over 3 years.
And prior to that?
For just under 10, I was employed at Rankard Scientific.
And what did you do at Rankard?
I was their chief neurologist who oversaw the research and clinical trial of the FV-MRI procedure.
Now, you were also on staff at Montreal Medical and the Frankfurt Clinic as well for a time, were you not?
Yes, in the 1990s, I was chief of neurology at Montreal, and I also had a private practice at Frankfurt until I joined Rankard.
Now, when did you first meet the defendant?
Just over a year ago. He was referred to me by his primary care physician for intense unexplained headaches.
Now, doctor, in your own words, and as an expert in your field, would you please explain what did you do for the defendant?
Well, first let me explain that there are 4 types of headaches: traction, vascular, inflammatory, and tension. And they each have a distinct pain. So I ran a battery of tests on Mr. Miller, including a specific test for pheochromocytoma, because this tumor runs in his family and comes with intense headaches. All tests, CAT, MRI, fMRI, along with change in diets and lifestyle, had no effect on these headaches.
Now, did you draw any medical conclusions at this time?
Not so much a conclusion, but what I saw to be maybe a final test. In my opinion, Mr. Miller was experiencing some lifestyle pain that was causing these intense headaches.
Now, could the action of murder have caused that pain?
Objection, Your Honor. There is absolutely no medical or factual evidence that my client's headaches were a result of any alleged criminal activity. Dr. Pullman will also explain that Mr. Miller has had these unexplained headaches since childhood.
Sustained.
Please explain lifestyle pain.
Sometimes a patient will have traumatic experience in their lifetime for which they have blocked the memory on a conscious level. This procedure, as long as the patient is willing and relaxed, can look past that in certain cases. Often we found that this medical procedure turns into a psychological one when the patient discovers things they didn't know or perhaps had forgotten. By another example, I once had a patient who had early onset of Alzheimer's and needed a complete visual memory account of a particular business meeting for legal purposes. A memory deposition, if you will.
Well, that's fascinating. Now, would you please tell us the exact name of this procedure and the process that it followed to come to market?
FVMRI stands for Functional Video Magnetic Resonance Imaging, and can trace its origin back to the first MR picture in 1973. Now, this process began in 2008, where patient would visually look at an object, and through a computer program, the machine would identify what the patient was thinking of by looking at specific areas in their brain. Now, through continued research and substantial trials, the FDA approved what became known as thought recognition procedure for public use in 2023.
Now, according to the FDA, this procedure is only 97% effective. So, two questions. First, why not 100%? And why not total recall?
As I mentioned earlier, the patient has to be willing and relaxed. By willing, they have to look at images from childhood to adulthood that will trigger the memory center. If the patient is angry or not cooperative, the images tend to blur, overlaps, and become unreadable.
Now, these aren't dreams.
No. In the simplest terms, dreams are a conflux of the imagination pulled from sources that, when combined, result in an event that is not consistent with the patient's life, whereas memories are actions. In our over 1,000 trial, this procedure has never once recorded a dream. It is important to remember that throughout this procedure, the patient is not sleeping. He must remain awake.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Pullman, before undergoing the procedure, the defendant had to sign a release for the memory of any capital crime committed, did he not?
Yes.
Now, why was that clause in there?
Objection, Dr. Pullman is a doctor, not an attorney.
Your Honor, Dr. Pullman was intimately involved with this process, and I believe that her answer has relevance.
Overruled.
Well, we learned rather early that people are, well, people. Some more law-abiding than others. This procedure is an admission of your life. That being said, if you are aware of a crime that you have committed or an affair that you've had, this generally will reveal it. So after congressional hearing, the capital offense release clause was added with the balance of images protected under patient privacy.
Now, let's take another look at the shooting video. Dr. Pullman, why are these video images in near black and white?
Mr. Miller suffers from achromatic vision, which is almost 100% color blindness.
Are these the memories of Henry Miller?
Yes.
No further questions.
So you are testifying on the record and under oath that the memory we see here is Henry Miller's and not a dream. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very interesting. Please play this alleged crime video for a few seconds and hold frame. Now, doctor, as you have been identified as an expert, looking at this image, where does it show Henry Miller's face?
It doesn't, because it's from his own vision. His eyes are the camera, if you will.
So your answer is, we don't see Henry Miller pulling the trigger.
Objection, Your Honor. These are images from the memory, the vision of the defendant. Now, this line of questioning is just an attempt to confuse the jury.
Sustained.
But memories are not time and date stamped like they would be from a video camera, are they?
No.
Then how do we know when this alleged shooting happened?
The images before and after revealed events in Mr. Miller's life that took place within a 24-hour period. That and the police...
Doctor, you may have more degrees than all of us here in this room today, but you are not a police detective. Please keep your answers to my questions. So then, for the record and for the benefit of the jury, is this alleged shooting in anywhere on this image time and date stamped as happening on April 18th, 2026?
No, it is not.
Would you please explain to the jury why we see these black or empty spaces before and after this alleged shooting?
The brain generally remembers emotional memory. The stronger the emotion, the better the recall. The storage. The spaces that you see really aren't black, they're static. The signal is there, but it's not clear, and therefore won't render. It just won't show an image.
So the subject could have gone anywhere during these snow periods, possibly even to another field.
Objection. The field has already been established.
Overruled.
Doctor, please answer the question.
It's possible.
Now, I'd like to go back to the FDA reports. You testified that there were over 1,000, is that correct?
Yes.
Any international trials? Any international trials?
Yes, there was 200.
Are the international trials included in your FDA reports? Doctor?
No, the international trials were not part of the FDA reports.
I see. Well then, did any of the findings from your international trials differ from the findings?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. Over 1,000 of these.
Your Honor, my
cases.
client is on trial for murder. If there's any evidence in any capacity that can assist in our defense, we have a right to know.
Overruled. Doctor, you will answer the question.
I only saw the U.S. trials.
But that doesn't answer my question, Doctor. You testified that you were in charge of all FVMRI procedures at Rheincar. So I will ask you again. Did any of the findings from your international trials differ from the findings from the trials that were conducted here in the United States?
I don't remember.
Mr. Moore, get Pullman out of the United States now.
Yes, Madam President.
Doctor, how many of these FVMRI machines are there in use throughout the world?
There are 125, 20 in the United States, and the rest are abroad.
And Rheincar is a private company based in Berlin with only a satellite sales office here in the United States.
Yes.
In your own words, Doctor, what does Rheincar do?
They develop tools and solutions for high-growth application in the medical science industry.
Just like the commercial. You own stock in Rheincar, isn't that true?
Yes, it was part of my compensation.
So, when the sale of Reincar Scientific, the manufacturer of this FV-MRI machine, were to go public in the next 60 days, your estimated windfall would be north of what? 30 million?
I am not sure what the final figure will be, Mr. Darrow.
Well, here's something that you are sure of. Doctor, who was the gentleman that you were sitting with in the courtroom yesterday and who you were talking to in the hall?
His name is Andrew Moore.
Let the record show that Andrew Moore is the chief legal counsel and member of the board of directors from Reincar Scientific, the manufacturer of this FV-MRI machine. And why was he here?
Objection, Your Honor. This is a public courthouse. Now, whether Moore was watching these proceedings on television or was present here in the courthouse is irrelevant. Besides, he was not on the witness list.
He wasn't on the witness list, Your Honor, because none of the Reincar executives are U.S. citizens and none would offer testimony.
Sustained.
All right, Doctor, I'd like to go back to the 3% of the FDA reports that you testified were unreadable. Now, you testified earlier, quote, if the patient is angry or uncooperative, the memories tend to blur, overlap, and become unreadable, unquote. Now, was Mr. Miller angry or not cooperative during this FV-MRI procedure?
He was very anxious and nervous.
So he was emotional?
Yes.
Please run sample excerpts from the whiteout periods from Mr. Miller's FV-MRI procedure. Doctor, is it your expert testimony that Mr. Miller's emotional state could have caused this overlapping memory error?
Yes, it's probable.
There's no other explanation for this?
No.
So those memories have not been identified?
No, when these cases do happen, we usually have the patient take the procedure again.
Did you ask Mr. Miller?
Because of this trial, Rankard refused to allow the procedure.
So it is your expert testimony today that you don't know what memory is encapsulated in those whiteouts that make up this 3%.
That's correct.
And that this procedure is no longer available to my client because a foreign company says so.
Correct.
Doctor, according to the FDA, the United States Department of Homeland Security funded the U.S. trials. Is that correct?
Yes, they were one of several sponsors.
And what were the stated reasons why the United States government was interested in this FV-MRI procedure?
I don't know.
Uh-huh. Well, isn't it true that during congressional hearings on this procedure that Mr. Andrew Moore, who you were seated with in this courtroom yesterday, and who during those hearings testified, and I quote, terrorism is not only a threat, it's an industry, unquote.
I don't recall.
How Oliver North of you. Pity this court can't order you to take this procedure yourself, but then that would require cooperation.
The jury will disregard that last statement from counsel. Counselor, save your editorial for closing arguments. You're here to ask questions, not make statements.
My apologies, Your Honor. I have just two final questions. Doctor, do you still hold a top secret security clearance from the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
I respectably take the Fifth Amendment.
And my final question, Doctor, have any of these FV-MRI machines been shipped by Reincar Scientific to any domestic or international intelligence agencies?
Objection, Your Honor. This is nothing but a sideshow.
Again, I respectively take the Fifth Amendment.
This witness is excused. I will see counsel in my chambers. This court is in recess until tomorrow morning.
All rise.
can you take the kids back to the farm? Oh, of course. Thank you.
Are you still going down to the restaurant?
I am. I have to change first. I just still don't get that bitch Pullman.
Well, I mean, there's enough doubt now.
Henry, may I talk to you for a moment?
Talk to this, doctor.
You knew about the intelligence agencies and her security clearances?
Your Honor, more than 1 million people in this country have top secret security clearance. And as for the international trials, I don't think they're germane to our case because the government, the people, and the FDA have certified this procedure for consumer use.
How can you sit there and say that? We have a man on trial for his life. If there's any data, domestic or foreign, that can assist in our case, we have a right to know.
And no means to obtain it. Now, a criminal subpoena can only be served in a foreign country upon a national or resident of the United States. Now, none of the Rheincar executives is a U.S. citizen. And you didn't even know Moore was in your courtroom until after he'd left.
Constance, your witness, the defendant's doctor, just took the 5th. And she's scheduled to receive, what, $30 million when Rencar goes public? You don't have to be a judge or lawyer to know that Pullman is holding something back. This memory evidence is the anchor tenet in your case. But I tell you, the fact that intelligence agencies are involved is disturbing.
Your Honor.
So, Constance, I will give it to you straight. If I find out your office has held discovery back from the defense, I will have your license for lunch.
You would be welcome in our office at any point to review our discovery and our disclosures to the defense. Now, what we have, they have.
I'll tell you what's even more disturbing. Despite Pullman's association with Rheincar, we can't find any record of any calls, emails, or visits to any rep of the company.
And while that might be disturbing, it's irrelevant to the case. It is not illegal to communicate via encryption.
Reluctantly, John, I agree. Unless you can find evidence of perjury, I have to keep Pullman's testimony in.
Where on earth does a 5-year-old learn how to paint that? What the hell were you and Joseph teaching him?
It's not what you think.
All I think is that my husband is on trial for something he didn't do. Okay. He's losing his mind. Joseph is practically living in church. The children are terrified of going back to school next week, and our financial picture is a fucking mess. So please, don't tell me how to think.
Try so hard to be a good parent, to do the right thing. I think when we lie to our children, we're protecting them. But a lie doesn't protect. It only hurts everyone in the end. Joseph should have told Henry the truth years ago. Tried to save him. It was a disaster. No wonder Henry hated us and lost his faith. There are some things you need to know.
We've done a lot of promotion, Henry. Some good specials that are lifting traffic.
Brian, look, I may not have been around, but I have been monitoring the books. I know how bad it is.
Henry, this This is your home equity account. I was just gonna lay off.
No. No more layoffs. I'm putting the farm up for sale. This whole thing will be over soon enough.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Brian Kovsky.
And your occupation?
I'm general manager at Miller Restaurants.
Now, you have worked for the defendant, Henry Miller, for over 5 years, is that correct?
Yes.
And prior to that, you worked at the Oxford Pizza Restaurant as assistant manager.
Yes, for 3 years.
Now, on April 18th of this year, were you working at the new restaurant?
Yes.
I need to get access to box number 70, please.
Come on.
And was Mr. Miller also present?
Yes.
And at some point, when both you and Mr. Miller were present at the restaurant, did Christopher Thomas and Richard Fanning arrive?
Yes.
What did they want?
They wanted Mr. Miller to drop the civil suit he had filed. Sign there, please.
And what was Mr. Miller's response?
Mr. Miller told them to fuck off and leave.
And did they?
No, not right away.
And then what happened?
Chris and Richard started going off very loudly, that they didn't have the money, that they got up into Mr. Miller's face and pushed him.
They pushed him?
Yeah, he fell over. Mr. Miller fell over.
And what did you do?
There you go. Let me know when you're done. Thank you. I pulled Chris off.
And what happened next?
Mr. Miller called the police.
Did Mr. Miller attempt to defend himself?
No. He just wanted them to leave.
Mr. Kovsky, I'm going to stop you right there. Do you know what perjury is?
Yes, it's when you lie in court.
And are you lying to this court about how things went on April 18th?
No. It's how I remember it.
Your Honor, permission to approach? Your Honor, this witness is lying. The assault in the video of Henry Miller's memory confirms conclusively that Miller began the assault. Now, if this evidence had been allowed in the first place...
Your Honor, you already ruled on this. My client's release was for capital crimes only, not for assaults.
And Kovsky knows this. This is why he is lying. Besides, the assault is inevitable discovery. Nix v. Williams. There were other witnesses present as well.
I'm reversing the suppression order. The assault is allowed.
Congratulations, you just bought an appeal.
Watch it, Counselor. Don't make me impose sanctions. Now step back.
then, Mr. Kowski, is it your testimony, under oath, that Christopher Thomas and Richard Fanning first assaulted Mr. Miller? That they pushed him?
Yes.
Well then, would you please play the Miller video record number FEMRI 2? Okay, we now see this day from the memory of the defendant. We are in a bathroom at the new restaurant where the defendant is looking at himself in the mirror. He takes out a cell phone, which shows conclusively that the date is April 18th, 2026 at 8:26 a.m. He gets into a brief argument with Mr. Fanning and Mr. Thomas. Mr. Kowski and Mr. Oxford are also present. Increase volume. Rewind and repeat. Then the defendant picks up a fork and lashes out at Mr. Fanning, striking him in the face. And it is after that Mr. Miller calls the police. Your Honor, I ask that this witness be taken into custody and held on account of perjury.
Does the defense have any questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Bailiff, if you would, please take this witness into custody.
Come with me.
The jury is excused until tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I heard what you said, and this is all very fascinating.
We have to introduce it.
Introduce what? That Henry's real grandfather was a Nazi? And that Henry was completely unaware of this. How the hell is that going to help him?
But those pictures of the field, they...
Look, Margaret, I sympathize. I really do. I mean, we're doing everything we can here.
Really? Why do you think we hired your agency in the first place? I am personally aware of your, shall we say, questionable investigative techniques. I think we understand each other. And don't bother with the record. Pullman isn't the only one who can talk over encryption.
Rough day, huh?
Yeah, we both talked to Margaret.
Yeah, she only has a theory.
You find a way to turn it into a fact.
Isn't that your job?
Dad.
Come on in.
Mom's been trying to call.
I'm sorry. I turned the phone off. Way too many calls.
Well, she said she'll be home in about an hour.
Okay, thank you. Well, Gary, I talked to Mr. Oxford. You can go back next week.
I thought he was testifying.
No, not anymore. We agreed not to put him on the stand if the DA released Mother from testifying.
Waiting for absolution for your sins or your father's?
I don't know anymore.
My God. You were there! Didn't you think to say something? Anything? Something that would help your son? No. You just did what you've always done, hide your sins under this roof. No wonder you and Henry never got along. You've lied to him since the day he was born, and you never did anything about it.
We tried to... We were desperate.
No, Joseph! You were the only one who was desperate to forget. The sins of one father, the guilt of another.
Are you going to tell him?
He's going through enough hell already. I'm not gonna add yours to it. He needs help, not prosecution.
Is this everything?
Of course. But please, this is my life's work. If Frank Hart was to...
Life? The life of Henry Miller did not concern you in the courtroom. Why should this? Doctor, I believe you told Margaret Miller how much you enjoyed posted social secrets of the government.
What does this have to do with anything?
Mrs. Miller made many enemies in the United States with that book. But she also made, shall we say, many new friends. I am her friend. Now, Doctor, I have a flight to catch. If we need anything else, we will be in touch.
The Commonwealth rests, Your Honor.
I understand the defense will not be calling any witnesses?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Very well. Are you both ready for closing arguments?
Yes, Judge.
Yes, Your Honor.
You've seen the evidence. You've heard from the experts. You've seen the admission of the crime. Not from a video camera in the back of the room or perched high in a tree, but by the defendant's own eyes, with the trigger pulled by his own hands. The motivation was clear. The defendant put his entire business on the line and was out over $350,000. He wasn't going to see a dime of that money from Mr. Fanning or Mr. Thomas. The evidence was clear that just hours after the defendant, Henry Miller, had assaulted Mr. Fanning at his restaurant, Mr. Miller, along with Mr. Thomas and Mr. Fanning, were all present at the Miller farm in the early afternoon of April 18th, 2026, where he shot and killed them in cold blood as they ran away. This was not self-defense. This was murder. The defendant is an expert marksman, which the evidence has proved beyond a reasonable doubt. He's not only capable of making such a shot, but his own memory has confirmed his actions. At the beginning of this trial, I told you that this was a simple case. But I didn't promise you an easy case. We're now in an era when science and law can look inside the memories of the accused and bring justice to the people. This procedure, this tool for which the defendant volunteered and signed a release, has enabled you to return a verdict of guilty of murder in the second degree. There should be no doubt in your mind that he is guilty, because it is his mind, his memory, that confirms his actions of 2 murders in the second degree. Thank you.
They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. But they also say, don't believe everything you see. What picture did the Commonwealth paint during this trial? One that revealed no bodies, no gun, no forensic evidence linking Henry Miller to this alleged crime. But what they did paint was green. From the $200,000 life insurance policy that Mr. Fanning's mother received, to the over $30 million that Dr. Pullman will receive if the public offering of Reincar Scientific, the manufacturer of this FV-MRI machine, is successful. Henry Miller's own doctor admitted on this witness stand that this FV-MRI machine has a 3% error rate, and that memories are not time recorded. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we don't have a very clear picture. We therefore have doubt. Much more than reasonable doubt. Why weren't the foreign trials included? Where's Mr. Fanning's car? How could Henry Miller on April 18th have disposed of 2 bodies, cell phones, in an automobile and been home in time for dinner? In fact, how did he get home at all that night? I ask you, how many of you have ever gotten so angry that you thought about killing someone? Today, it's a memory from a flawed machine. Tomorrow, your own thoughts could betray you. But if our final wall of privacy, our own mind, is to be put on trial, shouldn't it be 100% of what you, the mind holder, not machine, remembers? If evidence is not clean beyond all reasonable doubt, then that doubt sets Henry Miller free. Justice is not in the mind. It is in the evidence. Thank you.
We've all received instructions from the judge. There's a lot of facts in this case. We've heard a lot of testimony. We need to make a decision. So I first would like to open it up to see if there's any discussion or any comments that we need to discuss before we make our finding.
Henry, jury's in.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
The defendant will rise.
What do you got for me? You're kidding.
No, it's all there.
Oh, this is great. Here, hold that. That too. Let's go.
In the matter of Christopher Thomas, murder in the second degree, how does the jury find?
We find the defendant not guilty.
Yes. In the matter of Richard Fanning, murder in the second degree, how does the jury find?
We find the defendant not guilty.
All right. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the Commonwealth thanks you for your service. The defendant is released from custody and is free to go.
Not guilty.
I know where Fanning and Thomas are, and who killed them.
Come on up. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming. It's so much that you're here.
We see you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Tell you.
What's going on?
John, how are you?
I'm good. What's up?
Remember our boys in Berlin?
Yeah?
Well, they really paid out for us this time.
What's up?
Come on, you are not going to believe this. As you can see, Henry Miller's real grandfather was one Wilhelm Miller, who during World War II was part of the Nazi secret police, the Gestapo. He also served as a guard at the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland. Now, Henry's father Joseph had always led his son to believe that Wilhelm's brother Ernst was his real grandfather. Now, Ernst died in 1968, and Wilhelm, well, he died on June 5th, 1981, on the exact day and in the exact same city of Henry Miller's birth. Now, as you can see, Wilhelm took his young son Joseph to the camp. As unbelievable as that might sound, maybe it was take your son to work day, who knows? Now, after the war, Wilhelm was found not guilty in 1948 at the trials of the war criminals in Nuremberg for the shooting of 2 inmates in 1944 who had apparently appropriated civilian clothing and attempted to flee the camp. Now, but this very morning, Joseph Miller signed a written affidavit stating that he was there by his father's side in 1944 and saw that monster of a man shoot and kill 2 innocent people running for their lives. Now, Joseph also agreed to the FBMRI procedure. If there's one thing we can thank Dr. Pullman and Reincar Scientific for, it's they proved that the human mind, the human spirit, should never be read by a machine. For a full 3% of all trial subjects recorded some sort of previous life experiences. Experiences that, when processed by this procedure, collide into these whiteouts. The collisions from the memories of 2 people. One living and one dead. The memory this court tried Henry Miller on was his grandfather's. Okay. Now, Reincar's program can read these whiteouts. And according to documents that we just received, most subjects that experience these memories often don't know it, and in some cases begin to exhibit behaviors and patterns similar to those whose lives they were living. In most cases, they don't even know what they're doing. Sort of a reincarnation, if you will. And when Joseph discovered what was going on with Henry, he tried an exorcism. And the results were disastrous. But Pullman must have known about the possibility, as unexplained headaches are one of the primary symptoms. Henry was just another test subject, a guinea pig. Reincar and Pullman were more concerned about their government contracts than Henry. How was it that Reincar's lawyer put it? Yeah. Terrorism is not only a threat, it's an industry. Imagine being able to read the mind of a terrorist. Unfortunately, the man you tried today, Counselor, died 45 years ago. And with that, I rest my case.
My God. What has our system come to? When one can be found guilty of mind, yet innocent of body.
Mr. Oxford, down the knife and step away. Detective Biseglia. So you're being placed under arrest for the murder of Richard Fanning and Christopher Thomas.
Daddy, why did you do that? Why?
Because it's necessary. What are you doing here?
Just thinking about another time, another trial.
Speaking of, not guilty.
Just like then. Look at this place. Do you know what you've done here? Do you know what you've built here?
No matter what I've done, you've never supported me. Ever!
Who in his right mind would support something like this?
Who in his right mind would treat a child the way you did?
To rid him of an evil that should never have existed.
Then you better pray to your pathetic beliefs that it worked!
Where did you get it? How did you get a painting that has been missing for 80 years?
It is one of many.
Man is destined to die but once, and then to face judgment.
Dans Rosin. Zun.